Okay, so let's get into it. Today we're unpacking one of the biggest moments in history, Operation Overlords, or, as everyone knows it, D-Day.
Right. And it's just this massive, massive event. It was an invasion of mainland Europe that was literally planned for years before it actually happened in northern France.
And that planning is really the key here. The whole thing could have failed before it started if they picked the wrong spot. They spent years, the UK and the US, trying to figure out the perfect location.
They did, and they landed on the beaches of Normandy.
Which, if you look at a map, doesn't seem like the most obvious choice. I mean, it's not the shortest path across the English Channel.
No, it's not.
I got what?
But it was a tactical decision. It came down to, well, two really important things.
Okay.
First, the sand. The sand on the beaches had to be firm enough to hold up tanks, trucks, all the heavy gear. If it was too soft, they'd just sink.
And the whole invasion would literally get stuck in the mud.
Exactly. And second, and this is maybe the most important part, the landing spot had to be within range of Allied fighter planes kicking off from England.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah. Without that air cover, the fleet would have been a sitting duck. So the invasion's location was decided by how far a Spitfire could fly.
That's incredible, but even with the right spot, the logistics are just staggering. Moving that many people and that much equipment.
It was a colossal puzzle, one of the biggest coordination efforts in warfare ever. They needed incredibly detailed maps, spy photos of every German defense.
And they had to get the weather and the tides perfectly right.
Perfectly, because if the tide was out, the soldiers would have to run across hundreds of yards of open beach under fire.
And if the tide was in?
They'd run right into all the hidden obstacles the Germans had put in the water. There was just no room for error.
That scale is probably best represented by the fleet itself. I mean, it's almost impossible to picture.
The English Channel was basically covered in ships. It was an armada of over 5,000 vessels.
5,000.
It's still the largest sea invasion in history.
And that's everything from huge battleships firing massive shells at the coast, all the way down to tiny landing craft designed just to get the last few soldiers ashore.
Right, and you had hundreds of escort ships, too. Destroyers, minesweepers. Their job was to protect the main fleet from German U-boats and mines.
So the scale wasn't just for transport, it was a message.
It was a physical demonstration of the industrial power of the Allies, a statement of, sheer determination.
But before a single ship got to the coast, another, much quieter part of the invasion had already begun.
The airborne assault.
The paratroopers. These guys jumped behind enemy lines in total darkness, hours before the main landings.
Their mission was absolutely critical. They had one main job: capture key bridges and roads.
Why was that so important?
To stop German reinforcements. If they could hold those points, German tanks couldn't get to the beaches to push the invasion back into the sea.
And it was chaotic. A lot of them were dropped in the wrong place, scattered, alone in the dark with all this heavy gear.
It was. And they had this clever little tool to find each other. A little metal noisemaker, a clicker.
So they could identify friend from foe without shouting and giving away their position.
Exactly. But that chaos was actually part of an even bigger plan. A massive deception called Operation Fortitude.
The Ghost Army. This is one of my favorite parts of the story.
It's brilliant. The goal was to fool the Germans into thinking the real invasion was going to happen somewhere else entirely.
So they built a whole fake army in a different part of England.
A huge one, with hundreds of inflatable rubber tanks and wooden airplanes.
Inflatable tanks.
Yep. And they created tons of fake radio messages, making it sound like a huge force was preparing to attack near Calais, which is the narrowest part of the channel.
It's the logical place to attack, so the Germans were expecting it there.
And the deception worked perfectly. The German high command kept their best troops, their best tank divisions, waiting near Calais.
Even after the real invasion started in Normandy?
Yes. They thought Normandy was just a distraction. It bought the Allies precious, precious time.
But even with that advantage, the soldiers landing on the beaches had to face a huge obstacle: the Atlantic Wall.
It was a fortress. The Germans had spent years building these defenses. Thousands of concrete bunkers, pillboxes, miles of barbed wire, and millions of hidden landmines.
And that's just on the land. In the water, they had these giant steel obstacles, like huge metal jacks, designed to rip the bottom out of the landing craft.
Plus heavy artillery on the high ground looking down on the beaches. It was a death trap.
The Allies split the attack across 5 beaches, each with a code name.
That's right. You had Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword.
The American troops landed at Utah and Omaha.
And the British took Gold and Sword, while the Canadians were assigned to Juno Beach.
And the main goal was for all 5 forces to link up, right? To
Mhm.
create one big, continuous front line.
Exactly. But the experience on each beach was totally different. At Juno, for instance, the Canadians faced these offshore reefs and really strong German defenses. It was a tough fight.
But when you talk about the toughest fight, one name always comes up.
Omaha Beach.
Omaha was just a catastrophe at first.
It was. Allied intelligence was wrong about how many German soldiers were there, and strong currents just threw the landing craft way off target.
So the soldiers landed in the wrong spots, right in front of the heaviest machine guns.
They were pinned down from the start. The fire coming from the cliffs above was just relentless.
So how did they break through? It sounds impossible.
It took hours of brutal fighting and a really bold move from the Navy. Several destroyers sailed incredibly close to the shore,
Dangerously close.
right into the shallow water. And they started blasting the German bunkers with their main guns point blank. That naval fire finally gave the infantry a chance to move up the cliffs.
But the cost was enormous. Omaha had more casualties than all the other beaches combined.
It did, but that breakthrough also relied on some amazing new technology.
This is where the engineers come in, the scientists and inventors who created tools just for this invasion.
Absolutely. Like the DD tank.
The what?
Duplex drive. It was a Sherman tank with a big waterproof canvas screen fitted around it.
So it could float.
It could float.
Yeah.
The idea was to launch them from ships a few miles out, and they'd swim to shore to give the infantry immediate fire support.
A swimming tank. But I've heard a lot of them sank at Omaha because the water was so rough.
Many did, sadly. But the biggest invention wasn't a weapon. It was about supply.
The mulberry harbors.
The mulberries. They knew they couldn't capture a real port right away, so
They brought their own.
they brought their own. Massive artificial harbors made of concrete and steel, towed across the channel and assembled right there off the coast. It's an engineering marvel.
And that let them unload an endless stream of supplies and reinforcements.
And to fuel it all, they had PL Ludo,
Pipeline under the ocean.
a long, flexible pipeline laid on the seabed to pump fuel directly from England to France.
No need for slow, vulnerable fuel tankers.
It was revolutionary. Then you had all the specialized tanks, too. The funnies.
Hobart's funnies, right?
Yeah. Tanks with giant chains on a spinning rotor out front to clear minefields. Tanks that carried their own bridges to cross ditches. These things gave them a huge advantage.
Let's circle back to the timing for a second. The whole thing was almost called off.
It was. General Eisenhower had planned it for June 5th, but a massive storm blew in. He had to make an incredibly tough call.
And he postponed it by 1 day, banking on a tiny window of better weather.
An enormous gamble. And for the soldiers on the ships, it was miserable. The seas were still really rough.
But the bad weather ended up being a blessing in disguise, didn't it?
It really did. It gave them the element of surprise. The German commanders saw the storm and thought, no one is invading in this. They relaxed. Some senior officers even left the front.
So the storm actually helped them catch the Germans completely off guard.
In those first few hours, yes, it made a huge difference.
And as the troops finally started moving inland, they began liberating French towns.
The very first was Sommer-Église, captured by the paratroopers. But getting off the beaches was just the beginning of the fight.
Because the French countryside there is different.
Very different. The landscape is called the bocage. It's a maze of small fields separated by these ancient, thick hedgerows.
And those hedgerows were a nightmare for an attacking army.
A total nightmare. They were perfect cover for German defenders. They could hide anti-tank guns, machine guns. Every single field became an ambush.
And the tanks couldn't just crash through them.
Not at first. They had to invent a solution on the fly, welding giant steel blades onto the front of tanks just to bust through the Rhino tanks. It slowed the advance to a crawl.
And through all of this, the human cost is just... it's hard to comprehend.
It's heartbreaking. On that first day alone, over 4,000 Allied soldiers were killed. Tens of thousands more were wounded or went missing in the days and weeks that followed.
The cemeteries there are a powerful reminder of that sacrifice.
They are.
But the impact was decisive. D-Day created that second front. It forced Germany to split its armies, fighting in both the East and the West.
A fight they couldn't win. D-Day really did change the course of the war. It was this immense success that proved what these Allied nations could do together. The war in Europe was over within a year.
D-Day really does stand as this incredible symbol of international cooperation, of this fight for a common cause. But it leaves you with a question to think about. We've talked about how critical technology like the Mulberry Harbors was. So what if the Germans had managed to destroy them in a counterattack? Could the Allies still have supplied their armies and broken out from Normandy, or would the invasion have been stranded on the beaches? Something to consider.
Absolutely. Well, we hope this helps. Good luck with your studies.